Hey folks, it's Dr. Jeff Camarda with a bit of a dismal warning. This piece entitled, Why Taxes Will Go Up. You know, I've said often that tax strategy is the master wealth skill, the one that can make all the difference between just doing really well and getting really, really rich. It's somewhat ironic that it tends to be the least appreciated wealth skill, where consumers, even really rich, smart, and sophisticated consumers, who really should know better, downplay the value of this expertise and treat the chore of getting taxes done more like they're dry cleaning than the incredibly complicated master art that it really is when practiced well. Far too many taxpayers just want to drop their taxes off and get them done cheap. They often complain about how much they pay, but won't take the trouble to seek out true masters and are very, very resistant to paying for quality advice. This advice is usually not cheap, but is often one of the very best investments a taxpayer can make, with tax savings typically many, many times the cost of the fees compared to the results from the cheap, sometimes not too cheap, mediocre tax pros they often use. More than in any other profession I've encountered, except maybe my own, financial advising, law, medicine, engineering, whatever, more than any other profession, I found that true experts in tax are as rare as hen's teeth, to be so outnumbered by the legions of barely competent, you gotta pay your tax software junkie button pushers as to be nigh impossible to find. Like financial advisors, it's very difficult for even very smart consumers to tell the difference between truly excellent tax practitioners and those that merely smile winningly and look good in a suit. The sad state, coupled with the dry cleaning mentality of most consumers, means that vast sums of family wealth are typically lost to legitimately avoidable taxation. And I mean millions on untold millions of wealth lost to avoidable taxes. Now, I've trotted this soapbox out, of course, for a reason. While we've enjoyed some modest tax relief of late with the tax reform just about a year ago, I'm utterly convinced this is a brief holiday or respite before the storm, and that taxes will rise with a vengeance for the rest of your lives and probably the rest of your children's lives too. If you don't watch out, they'll choke your family's wealth. And why is this? There are three primary forces big as hydrogen bombs. Number one, U.S. federal deficits are out of control and will be exacerbated by factors 2 and 3 below. If you look at the graph in the newsletter, you'll see that for most, sorry we can't present it easily on the video, not yet, we're still somewhat tech challenged, but you'll see that for most years since 1970, the U.S. has spent more than it's taken in as a percentage of economic output as measured by GDP, a gross domestic product. The difference is additional debt. If we spend more than we take in, just like a household, the difference has to be borrowed. And the interest on that debt also adds to the debt itself. To pay off maturing government bonds, more bonds are sold, effectively putting one's credit card balance on another credit card. Facts are that we have issues, obviously, with a ballooning deficit, which is not going anywhere, apparently, in our lifetimes, and it just gets worse for reasons we won't get into in this video, what the money is spent on. Number two, the cost of U.S. entitlement programs, primarily Medicare and Social Security, are exploding and widely predicted to blow up, run out of money, go bankrupt, hit the mountain, whatever, in just a few years. Just a few years now, in the late 20s. Economic seers have been warning of this at least as far back as I can remember as an undergraduate in the 70s. But real change, besides taxing benefits and other sneaky tax increases, which are already happening, will get worse, but they're tax increases. Real change of these entitlement programs is politically impossible and will almost certainly not happen under our current system of governance. Factor number three, the death spiral economics of factor number two are being supercharged by two supreme demographic change trends. Number one, Or A, retirees are living far, 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 far longer than ever modeled when these programs were set up back in the 1930s for Social Security. So how many people live to 65 in the 30s, let alone to 85? But living far number than ever envisioned and pulling ever larger chunks out in benefits for decades, far more than ever put in. I'm not saying don't take the money, but it's not a good trade for the government. Instead of the months initially assumed, they expect back in the 30s when FDR, in their part of the New Deal, set up Social Security, I expected to live for months maybe, not decades. Back then, again, 80-year-olds were pretty hard to find. Factor number 2, the baby boom, now playing golf and spending big on health care until late in life, had lots fewer children to replenish the workforce and pay the FICA tax, Social Security and Medicare taxes, into the pay-as-you-go entitlement system. Many of the jobs that the lost children would have filled are now worked by illegal immigrants, millions and millions of them, who tend not to pay taxes. So if you look at the big picture, in my view, pretty bleak, and this triple whammy picture has been coming into focus, for a long time, but will result in unavoidable tax hikes, in my view, like we've never seen, to pay for it all when we finally hit the breaking point. And that's before factoring in the impact of if the new socialist fashion that swept Europe and is making a lot of noise in the U.S., if this new socialist fashion takes root in the United States. Someone proposed, probably not very realistically, at least for now, restoring the 75% top income tax bracket in the U.S. That was just in the past week or so. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but you get my concern. The only other alternative to raising taxes is monetizing the debt, which is a nice way of saying printing tons of money to drive down the value of the dollar and pay it off cheap by stiffing the lenders who get back pennies on the dollar. This is the banana republic solution, and it's not a good one. It's a path that Weimar Germany took after World War I, which devastated the German economy and paved the way to Hitler's election. Remember those wheelbarrows of worthless marks from grade school? The currency lost so much value, it was actually weighed instead of counted to make purchases. Now I think tax hikes are inevitable. In these times, prudent tax planning can move the needle as perhaps never before. Let those with ears hear and hold on to their wallets. And with that cheery thought, that's it for this week. This is Dr. Jeff Camarda. Until next time, hang on to your wallets, keep on smiling, don't worry about market volatility. Thanks for watching, folks.